Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are going to crack the code on the official Institutional Standards Assessment Manual. Now, I know what you might be thinking. It looks like this huge, dense, really complex document, right? Well, we're going to show you that it's actually a pretty clear, manageable, and even logical journey, and it's all designed to help you showcase your institution's quality.
Before we jump in, a huge thank you to Dr. Abdul Karim for sharing all this incredible information with us. And just a heads up, think of this explainer as your friendly guide. We're here to clarify the key aspects, but we're definitely not a replacement for real expert advice. So if you have any specific doubts, you should for sure discuss them directly with an expert, someone like Dr. Abdul Karim.
Okay, so let's say your institution is facing a review. You open up that official manual and, yeah, it can feel a little overwhelming, right? But what if I told you to just forget about it being a complex set of hurdles? Because it's not. It's actually a really straightforward, logical process. And at the end of the day, it's all about self-reflection and getting better.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with what the ISAA even is. Then we'll get into the core standards they look at. After that, we'll walk through the whole accreditation journey, talk about some keys to a successful review, and finally, we'll break down what the final outcome actually means.
So first up, what is the ISAA? Let's get right into the why behind this whole review process. So at its core, the ISAA is basically a structured checkup. It's a way to review the quality of what a higher education institution is doing, its performance, what it provides, and measure all of that against a set of national standards. But here's the thing. The whole process is really built on one big foundational principle. And here it is. The key thing to get is that this whole process starts from the inside out. It starts with you. The idea is that the main responsibility for quality, well, it rests with the institution itself. It's not about some outside group coming in to judge you cold. Nope. It's about your own institution taking ownership, looking in the mirror, and basically telling its own story. Okay, so building on that whole idea of ownership, let's get into the what. We know the why, so what are the actual standards this assessment covers? So the whole thing is broken down into a few key areas, which they call standards. You can kind of think of these as the main pillars of your institution. We're just showing a few here, but they cover everything from how you support your students, to research and innovation, all the way to how you engage with the community and the world. Okay, but let's drill down a little deeper. Under each of those big standards, you've got something called criteria. Now, if the standards are the pillars, then the criteria, they're like the individual bricks. They're the specific, detailed requirements, the checklist items, the real proof points that show you're actually meeting the standard. All right, this is the really good stuff. This is the core of our explainer, the how. How does this whole journey actually play out? The great news is the manual lays out a super clear step-by-step path. It's all about the process. So it all kicks off with this self-assessment, which itself is broken into three main stages. You create your team and schedule, you actually do the self-assessment, and then you prepare the big application. And listen, this is a pretty big deal. The manual suggests giving yourselves at least 6 months for this. So yeah, this is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. Now, as your team is getting that application ready, you're going to be pulling together a ton of evidence. And it really falls into two buckets. First, you've got your mandatory materials. Think of these as the absolute must-haves, the non-negotiables. Then you've got supplementary materials. This is your chance to add extra evidence to back up your claims. But, and this is important, you can't just throw everything in there. You're capped at 450 items, so you've got to be strategic. Once that application is in, the next huge milestone is the site visit. This is when the review panel actually comes to your campus. And as you can see, it's a packed few days, but it's also incredibly well structured. They have dedicated time to talk with literally everyone, from the senior managers all the way down to the students. And check this out. This is what I mean when I say the process is logical and detailed. The manual gets so specific that it even lays out the exact configuration of the interview room. I mean, from the shape of the table to where the clock goes on the wall, it's all designed to create a professional, calm environment that's all about clear communication. Pretty incredible, right? Okay, speaking of rigor, here's a fun fact for you. Take a guess. How many different versions of the final report do you think they create before it's actually finalized? The answer is 6. Yep, 6. The final ISAA report gets passed through at least 6 different drafts and review stages. That's all to make absolutely sure that it's fair, accurate, and consistent. So you've got all these steps, all these details,
how do you actually navigate this thing successfully? Well, the manual itself actually gives some amazing advice, some really good practices for your team.
And here's what it boils down to. This is a team sport. For real, you need buy-in from the very top. Your senior leadership has to champion this. And you can't just dump it all on the quality assurance unit. No, you need a diverse team with people from all over the institution to get the full picture. And, super important, you have to plan for the extra work this puts on people. It's not magic.
And when it's time for those interviews, the manual gives some great, stress-free tips for your staff and students. The advice is simple. Just be direct. And you know what? It is totally okay to say, I don't know. Way better than making something up. Keep your answers short and sweet. Oh, and don't bring a PowerPoint deck with you. This is supposed to be a conversation, not a big presentation. Okay, and that brings us to the home stretch. Understanding the final outcome. After all that work, the self-assessment, the site visit, what do the results of this journey actually look like?
Believe it or not, the final outcome is actually super straightforward. It's tied directly to how many of those main standards we talked about are rated as met. If you meet all of them, you're accredited. Simple as that. If you miss the mark on just one, you're conditionally accredited. But if 2 or more standards are rated not met, well, that's when an institution gets placed on probation. And of course, to make sure the whole process is fair, there's a safety net built right in. There's a formal appeals process. So if an institution genuinely believes the review wasn't conducted properly or that the panel didn't follow the manual's own rules, they have a way to challenge it. So really, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's about shifting your mindset. We said it at the beginning, and it's worth saying again. This is not some complex set of hurdles designed to trip you up. It's a logical journey, a structured chance to look inward, reflect, and genuinely get better. So, when you really understand and follow this process, you realize you're not just prepping for a review, you're actually building a way to confidently tell your institution's own unique story of quality. So the only real question left is your institution ready to tell its story?
Thanks for tuning in to The Explainer.